Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Sanibel Captiva Guide podcast. I'd like to welcome James Evans, who was recently appointed the CEO of the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. James has 22 years experience working in the South Florida ecosystem with expertise in water quality, environmental policy, marine biology, estuarine ecology, and...
How do you say that?
Estuarine?
Estuarine.
Estuarine, okay, estuarine.
Maybe they say
we could blame it on the
estuarine
Brits.
in England.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay. And lastly, environmental restoration. And just leading off with that fact, James, there quite often organisations on the island, and this is not a negative in any sort of way. They're very capable people, but a lot of the times these organisations are run by retired CEOs or people from a business background. We can quite clearly see that you're a super qualified guy for what you're doing. I mean, this is right in your wheelhouse. You were in the city before this, is that right?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to come join you guys today and talk about some of the work we're doing at SCCF. And yeah, I'm first and foremost, I'm a scientist. So I have a science background and really care passionately about what we do here in Southwest Florida, especially here on our islands, on Sanibel and Captiva Islands.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And where did you study?
Yeah, so I studied at Florida Gulf Coast University. I have undergraduate and graduate degrees in environmental studies, environmental science, focusing on fisheries, marine science. So yeah, that's where most of my background comes from. And then of course, I spent the last 20 plus years working on Sanibel Island. First, I started with the city of Sanibel in 2000, working my way up from a conservation officer all the way to the director of natural resources, where I spent a little over 7 years as the director of natural resources. And then I had the opportunity to join the SCCF team, which of course I've been working with SCCF for 2 decades now. I felt like I was already part of the family.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to take over as the environmental policy director when Rayanne Wessel left. And then, of course, this past year, I had the opportunity to take on the CEO role. So I'm really excited.
So that's an interesting point. So the city actually works closely in hand with the SCCF.
Yes, we have a seamless conservation partnership on this island here on Sanibel, and we also work very closely with the community of Captiva as well. When I was with the city of Sanibel. So, we have a conservation partnership that includes the city of Sanibel, Ding Darling National Wildlife Refuge, the Wildlife Society, the Ding Darling Wildlife Society, Crow, the Shell Museum. I mean, our conservation partnership is what really makes this community so unique.
And that's why I think that what makes the community so unique, even the citizens are behind this conservation ethos that is so entrenched, I think, in these islands.
Well, we couldn't do it without the support that we have from this community. It's, it honestly gives me the chills thinking about it, because this community is just so generous and really steps up to the challenge. And they're the reason why these islands look the way they do, and they'll look this way in perpetuity, because the citizens care so much about these 2 islands and cared enough to be able to put the conservation principles in place to protect these islands into the future.
Right. That's amazing.
So just give anybody that's not familiar with the SCCF, give them a background, how it started, where it is today, and what's the future plans. And that's a big question.
That is a huge question. Let's start with
where it started. What was it? How was it founded? What was the intentions?
Yeah, so SCCF was founded, in fact, the group that founded SCCF was part of an offshoot of the Ding Darling Memorial Committee, a committee that was really formed to honor the conservation legacy of J.N. Ding Darling, who was a cartoonist, a Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist from Iowa and wintered on Sanibel. And he cared so passionately about Sanibel that he was Sanibel and Captiva that he was able to get Sanibel and Captiva Islands dedicated as sanctuary islands. And then, of course, later worked to establish the Sanibel Wildlife Refuge, which later became named in his honor.
Right, after he passed away. I think it took like 7 years, after he passed away for them to actually
he passed away in 1962, and the Memorial Committee was able to rename the refuge in his honor in 1967.
Right.
Awesome.
So and then of course SCCF was formed as an offshoot of that committee. People recognized that with all of the development pressure that was coming from Lee County in the 1960s 60s, there was 35,000 units of development planned for Sanibel.
Right. This is because
we're gonna put up a graphic here after, Max. We took a picture of a cartoon that was done around about that time, and it showed an overdeveloped set. So we'll put it up and see.
McDonald's.
Perfect.
I think it's what could have been on Sanibel.
Yeah,
the
something
graphic,
like that.
illustration.
Because of that, this time the causeway had just been built, and Lee County had decided this is what we're going to do with Sanibel.
And for you millennials out there, if you look back at J.N. Ding Darling or the younger generation, think of him as a social media influencer. Back in his day, he would have been a hugely influential character. He's a cartoonist, but in a satirical way. So the cartoonists back then were kind of rock stars. They were very popular, very well paid, and that's how he ended up.
And he brought a lot of attention to our islands here, and of course, once those were established as sanctuary islands, that was really important for Sanibel in particular, and being able to kickstart the conservation movement on these islands. And of course, SCCF was founded on October 31st, Halloween, of 1967.
Was that on purpose? Do you know?
I don't know, but it just worked out that way.
Right.
So 1967, and we've been, we really started as a land trust. The goal was to preserve, the land, acquire lands to preserve the natural resources of Sanibel, because we were seeing the development impacts on Sanibel and Captiva Islands, the development pressure coming from Lee County. We were starting to see impacts on water quality back then. And so we started to acquire lands primarily along the Sanibel Slough or the Sanibel River.
Right.
And those are the most sensitive areas in the interior freshwater wetland system of the island. We started to acquire those lands. And of course, now today we own and manage over 1,200 acres of lands here on Sanibel, and over 2,000 acres in the whole region, including some of the islands in San Carlos Bay and Pine Island Sound. And we also own some lands in the Caloosahatchee watershed and along the McGregor corridor, leaving the islands.
Even McGregor, really?
Yeah,
Whereabouts on McGregor?
So we acquired 3 parcels of land this past year in 2020. Adjacent to the Bimini Bait Shack there, some mangrove wetlands, and then as you get closer to Shell Point, there's 2 parcels of land there as well. And the goal of acquiring those lands were to take land that could have been developed, lands that shouldn't be developed in the coastal high hazard zone, and protect those and preserve those in perpetuity.
Right. That's what I was going to say, because you started. You are continuing. I think you just purchased land just recently. You just announced.
Yeah, this past year, I think it was 28 acres that we acquired, including some lands in Cape Coral as well, some sensitive mangrove areas along the Caloosahatchee watershed, and then of course some additional lands on Sanibel.
Yeah. So is that by the dock area or the water release area?
Which one?
It would be just north of Tarpon Point Marina, so it'd be north up the river a little bit there.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that's fascinating. And then what? I mean, you've been brought in for your expertise, and what do you personally? I mean, what do you see the future? What do you want to change? What do you want to try and?
Well, honestly, I've worked with SCCF for the past 20 years, and coming into this position, I'm really standing on the shoulders of giants. We've had amazing people leading this organization, including our past CEO Ryan Orgera. And, obviously I'm building on the work that they have already done. Eric Lindblad is another amazing executive director, Dick Workman, and others. And so I'm really going to be carrying forward the tradition of the work we do today, because I don't think that you can move forward without recognizing the future, or the past work that we've done, the conservation work we've done, but looking to the future, we're using science to drive, our policy decisions. And that, I think, is where the future is, using all of the great marine research and science that we're doing, our education, our advocacy, and our outreach efforts, to push the needle when it comes to water quality, to preserve more habitats throughout Southwest Florida, and of course, expanding, our impact on the region. We really focus on the region, our regional partnerships, our regional science, because of the impact it has directly on us here on Sanibel and Captiva Islands. So we need to expand that. We need to focus more on the Caloosahatchee watershed as we get the comprehensive Everglades Restoration plan projects completed and start to reduce the amount of water that comes from Lake Okeechobee, we must focus on the Caloosahatchee watershed. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see that developed, and degraded water quality will continue to impact us here on the islands.
Right. Yeah, so it's a huge thing that's been.
And I'm sure everybody's heard the term red tide.
Red
too,
tide, which is a very contentious subject. It's something that has occurred naturally for many, many years, but maybe aggravated by development and nitrates and all the rest of it. So you're putting out. You were saying just before we came on air that you're actually putting out drone pictures to show water quality. What other things regarding the water quality are you guys doing?
Yeah, so of course we have a fully functioning marine lab. We're doing world-class science here in Tarpon Bay on Sanibel Island. And we're doing a lot of work on Sanibel and Captiva Islands when it comes to water quality and coastal resiliency, things like that, so we can adapt to sea level rise and climate change. So we're doing a lot of research. That's the first thing we do. We do a lot of monitoring so that we can use that data to inform policy. And some of the monitoring that we're doing is through what we call the River and Estuary Coastal Observing Network. That's a network of water quality sensors that we have that runs down the entire Caloosahatchee River out into the bay and into our coastal waters. And so what the recon stations, as we refer to them, what they do for us is they provide real-time water quality monitoring data. And we can use that and incorporate that into our weekly Caloosahatchee conditions reports that are sent to water managers. They're sent to our legislative delegation in the region, as well as our local leaders like Mayor Smith here on Sanibel and Commissioner Kevin Ruane and the Lee County Commission. So they know what's going on in real time. So we know week to week what's going on, what impacts the discharges from Lake Okeechobee or the watershed are having on the ecology of our estuary. And that's really helped us move the needle from a policy perspective.
Yeah.
We've also partnered with the Conservancy of Southwest Florida this year to hire a hydrological modeler. And that modeler is providing us data that we can use to push the Army Corps of Engineers to make changes to the new regulation schedule for Lake Okeechobee so that we aren't treated like the sewer pipe like we've been for the last 13 years.
Right.
So that's really important.
We went to a talk at the colonel, the outgoing colonel. I think it was a chamber meeting.
Yeah, it was a chamber meeting.
And they said they've come a long way. And do you think that's true? Do you think there is, without causing any controversy, do you think there are steps going in the right direction where we can work closer hand in hand with the Army Corps of Engineers who control the water releases from Lake Okeechobee with the local residents and people like yourself?
Yeah, we've been very pleased with the response we've received from the Army Corps of Engineers. Again, through the science that we've been able to put together through our hydrological modeler and our policy team, we've been able to really make a case based on the best available science. And the Army Corps is listening. Our real concern right now is the Florida legislature trying to undermine that process. Right now, there's some harmful bills that are being considered by the legislature that could undermine all of the great work that we've done on the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual. So that's where we're focusing our attention.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's something I feel very strongly about. Everybody needs to be informed about this, and it's been. I don't want to be controversial when I say it, but there are bills that are being veiled as though they're protecting, and they're really not. They're set out to help industry more than they are ecology.
What would you suggest to a regular person? What can they do?
So the first thing it can do, of course, is sign up for our action alerts on SCCF.org.
Okay.
That's the first place you can go. We also have a legislative tracker that we put out every week. We look at the bills, we assess the bills, and we put out what bills we support and what bills we're concerned about.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge because a lot of people wouldn't even know where to find them.
Yeah, we've heard that they name the bills a certain thing that kind of makes it seem like it's for ecology.
I think
or
one of them was the
conservation.
burn-offs, wasn't it? Wasn't something? Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn.
Right,
but there's
right.
Yeah.
So people. So yeah,
there's been a lot of bills that have been labeled in a way to make it look attractive, but they're really they're their shale bills that are actually harmful to the environment. So we've been watching those very carefully, and we've been working with our regional partners. We have several regional partners. City of Sanibel is probably our closest partner when it comes to working on legislative issues. We've been working with the Captains for Clean Water, the Everglades Foundation, and others. We're all very concerned about this, this bill that is in the legislature. I think it's it's PCB, which is a committee bill. And I think it's 1508. I have to look at the number, but it's one that's going to be considered this week on Wednesday on the Appropriations Committee, and we're going to keep people informed, and we're going to put out some action alerts. So
unfortunately, by the time this comes out, this date would have already passed, but we will definitely right here include the information on how to be notified.
And the website is sccf.org is where you can find the information that you're talking about.
So backpedaling a little bit, you said about it's way above my pay grade, but you said about the modeling, the waterway modeling software that you use. Is it kind of like a hurricane tracker where you can predict what's going to happen? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's all kinds of data that goes into this model, which looks at the entire watershed. And the watershed is just an area of land that drains towards a water body. And so our hydrological modeler takes into account all of the data that's being evaluated by the Army Corps of Engineers and looks at their complex models and then assesses it specific to our needs. And then he can assess the percentage of time where we're going to get damaging flows or low flows, where we don't get enough flow to the estuary, where our salinities, the salt content in the water can get so high it's damaging to our seagrasses and oysters and things like that. And so he can essentially make recommendations to our policy team, and then our policy team's responsible for taking that information and making the case to our water managers or whomever we're trying to deal with. So yeah, it's software that's used, but there's a lot more than just software. It's also the interpretation of the data.
Of the data that's collected at many points along the river, is that correct?
Yeah, not only throughout the river, but throughout the entire water management system from just south of Orlando, starting with the headwaters of the Everglades in Shingle Creek, into the Kissimmee River, into Lake Okeechobee, south into the Everglades, into Florida Bay, east to the St. Lucie, and west to the Caloosahatchee. So all of that entire area has been modeled through this process. So we know, how the waters flow and how much water will be discharged to different areas at different times.
So basically the water that's coming out or being restricted from Lake Okeechobee, whether it's been released or restricted, and the damage that occurs.
Exactly. And our ultimate goal is to get that water that is in Lake Okeechobee south to the Everglades where it's desperately needed. The Everglades has been impacted, for the past century because of ditching and draining the system
where it was meant to go.
Yeah, exactly. For agricultural development and urban development. And so our goal with Everglades Restoration is to get that water flowing south once again so that it's not flowing east and west to the Caloosahatchee and St. Lucie estuaries where it's harmful.
Let it go where it was supposed to go.
It's restoring, the quality, quantity, timing, and distribution of those freshwater flows to all the natural systems. That's our goal.
So you have you have links with the Florida Gulf Coast University?
We do.
Yeah, Max and I were filming in Ding Darling. We were lucky enough to be in there at sunrise. It's not normally open at sunrise, but we were filming for Ding Darling, and there was a lot of volunteers there from the university. But is that part of SCCF?
Yeah, I don't know the work that FGCU was doing in there. They may have another partnership with Ding Darling, but we're all working very closely on water quality. But because I did my graduate work and my undergraduate work at FGCU, I'm very close with Dr. Greg Tolley over there in the water school. And they're doing some really good work, and we certainly support the work they're doing, and they support the work we're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Fascinating.
That's awesome. And then any news coming up? Any new purchases, land acquisitions, anything
that citizens can get behind?
Yeah, so there are a couple land acquisitions that we're eyeing. We don't really want to talk about those right now.
We don't want to disclose them. Not a good idea.
But I would mention that one that we've been very much engaged in off island is the Eden Oak property, which is the Eden Oak development, which is located near Shell Point.
Oh, okay.
Shell Point, where the Shell Point development is. There's a large tract of land just to the south of Shell Point. And the proposed development there would impact about 36 acres of mangrove forest.
Jeez.
And we've been really concerned about that. They're working to get that property rezoned to increase the development density. And we've been opposed to that since day one. And we've been trying to work with Lee County to acquire that land through the Conservation 2020 program, which is the county's land acquisition program. And unfortunately, the asking price is too much, and we're trying to figure out a way that we can partner with Lee County and figure out how we can acquire those lands. But we're really pushing hard that doesn't get rezoned, because that's going to increase value on a property that's not really worth much, because of the wetland impacts that would occur as part of that development.
So just to clarify where it is, if you were to stand on the roof of the Sanibel Marriott Hotel, which actually isn't on Sanibel, it's on Fort Myers there, and you were to look directly east, then the next buildings you would see would be about a quarter of a mile away would be Shell Point Village, which is a retirement community. So we're talking about the mangrove land in between those two areas.
But to speak about mangroves, why are they so important to the ecology here? What do they do for the islands? Why do we not want to get rid of them, basically?
Just a quick message before we get back to the show. We put a ton of effort into bringing you quality content, so if you would like to help us share our love of the islands, here are several easy ways. Firstly, you can support us on Patreon. You could purchase an island souvenir from our Etsy store. You can metaphorically buy us a coffee, which is an easy way to donate a couple of bucks.
Don't you prefer tea?
Well, I do, kind of. Also, like and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all things Sanibel and Captiva. And finally, show some love to our sponsors. Let them know we sent you. All the links are in the description below. Now, back to the episode.
Well, first of all, if anybody is concerned about climate change, they should be really concerned about mangroves, because they're such important, for cycling carbon. They're also important habitat for fisheries. A lot of our economically and ecologically important finfish, spend a lot of time in mangroves, whether it's avoiding predators or foraging. So that's really important. And plus, they also provide important buffers to wind and wave action along the shoreline, especially on the bay side of Sanibel and Captiva Islands. They're really our first line of defense to sea level rise. So mangroves are really important. But again, it's mostly because, they're the basis of the detrital food web. So as the leaves fall off the mangroves, they add carbon, into the water. That provides a food base for fish and invertebrates like crabs and things like that. So it's just really important. Without mangroves, Southwest Florida would look very different than it does today.
Exactly.
It's funny, if you can ever see a mangrove side on when a wave is hitting from one side, and if you can look through it, the dissipation of the energy is incredible, isn't it? I mean, you couldn't scientifically design something. So, I mean, literally a crashing wave will come and it will just be almost still after several feet.
Absolutely. And that's why we've been promoting those to be used as living shorelines, to, use those instead of, rock walls and things like that have little to no attenuation effect on wave action other than just stopping that wave. If you have those mangroves, they attenuate that wave action almost immediately. So.
Fascinating stuff.
And they provide habitat, so that's the other important feature.
Filled with wildlife,
Yeah, amazing.
Fantastic.
So, I know I want to touch on some other, so we have this high level stuff, but there's other stool or legs to the SCCF stool that I really want to bring attention to the public, that they can go and visit these other places and do other things. So let's talk about that. So I want to start with the the different preserves. So you have the preserves that you protect, but there are some that the public can actually visit, correct?
Yeah. So at the Nature Center, which is currently under construction, the Eric Lindblad Preserve, we have like 4 miles or so of trails that people can go out there and enjoy. And of course, our tagline is connecting you with nature. Our goal is to get people out in nature, to learn about nature and understand why we need to protect and preserve nature. And we think that's much more important than sitting in a room watching, LCD screens or seeing taxidermy.
I agree.
But really getting out there in nature to appreciate, why we do the great work we do.
Yeah.
And that trail is great. You can walk through it, and then there's
a tower.
Viewing tower, so you can look and see where you've come from.
Yeah, and another great trail is the Shipley Preserve or Shipley Trail, which is connected to the city of Sanibel's Pond Apple Park Trail. And that will take you essentially from the Chamber of Commerce on the Pond Apple Park Trail all the way through, all the way to Roadside City Park, which is located just to the east of the antique shop. So it's a pretty significant walk. You can spend a couple hours on that trail, and you'll see a lot of wildlife.
Tons of wildlife. Yeah.
Maybe alligators.
It's a great trail.
Lots of
Bobcats, alligators, coyotes. I mean, there's a lot of wildlife on those trails. And we see, we have a bald eagle that's nesting adjacent to the trail. So there's a lot of opportunities to view wildlife.
So I know you closed down the Nature Center. Do you know when it's proposed to be open again?
Yeah, so we're hoping to have construction completed in a year. And we shut the Nature Center down, obviously, so we can do the construction. But when the Nature Center comes back, it's not going to be exactly like it was before.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be redoing it as our headquarters building, which will help us support visiting scientists as we work to establish a research station here in Southwest Florida. We wanted to have more space so that we can bring in visiting scientists and work with our biologists and marine scientists here. So it's going to be more of a facility to facilitate those types of things. We'll have opportunities to do some programs and things like that, but it's going to be a little different than the way it was before.
Gotcha. Okay. And let's talk about the sea turtles that you do, that monitoring program you do for the sea turtles on the island.
Yeah, we have our coastal wildlife program, which includes not only sea turtles, but it includes our shorebird monitoring program as well. And so we've been monitoring sea turtles on the islands for, decades now. And, we hold the permit for both Sanibel and Captiva Islands. And not only are we monitoring, the success rate, the hatch rate of the sea turtles, we're also looking at how red tide and water temperature and all of those other things can affect not only hatchling success and survival, but also how it might influence their sex ratios. For example, one of the things that science is telling us is that water temperature can actually change whether we have male or female sea turtles. And if it's cool, cool within the nest, we'll have more male hatchlings. If it's hot, we'll have more female hatchlings. And so climate change can have a direct impact on those ratios and could affect the health and survival of those species.
And the public can get involved. You have an app, don't you, that you can download if you see a sea turtle out in the wild. You can actually report.
Yeah, and of course, we depend heavily on our volunteers. We have a huge core of volunteers that help us every year monitor our sea turtles throughout Sanibel and Captiva Islands. And of course, I can't thank them enough for the great work they do. And we couldn't do half the work we do.
Yeah, they get up at early hours.
Every morning at sunrise, starting at the lighthouse and then driving north.
Absolutely.
Right, turtle nesting season. So.
Well, I can tell you, it's extremely rewarding, though, when you actually see and you see one of those hatchlings working its way to the water, scurrying across the beach to get to the water, and you see it, make it off the beach safely. It just brings a tear to your eye, knowing how hard they have to work. I mean, 1 in 1,000 makes it to adulthood. Yeah. Right. And then, of course, they come back to their natal beaches to nest again as adults.
Incredible.
Yeah, Nick made a video once where he had done a sunrise portrait, and he thinks he was probably the first person to stumble upon this.
I was definitely the first person, it
was just what do you call it? The crawl.
It was the crawl, but there was no footprints through it, and then the SCCF golf cart was about 500 yards away, so I was officially the first one there. Unfortunately, I missed the turtles, but I was totally excited because I've been out so many times, and although I've seen the crawls, I've never actually been the first to see it. So
you've just the markings in the sand you saw. You didn't see a turtle.
Well, it was exciting. I liked it. Yeah.
I mean, that video is awesome.
It turned out being a false crawl, didn't it?
It was a false crawl. So the turtle had come up to went to lay eggs for whatever reason, couldn't find a suitable spot, turned around and then came back and went to the water to try somewhere else.
But you were definitely excited.
So I was excited, yeah.
and that raises a really important point. We don't know exactly why, a female goes to the beach and tries to nest and then has a false crawl, doesn't nest successfully, but ultimately she'll come back and nest again.
Right.
But a lot of times the light pollution from our beaches can be something that will deter a female from nesting. She realizes that, hey, this might not be a good spot for my nest. I'm going to try again another night. So we always encourage, people within our communities to make sure that, they're doing things that are turtle friendly. Turn your lights off, make sure that you're putting light fixtures in that reduce the amount of sky glow or light trespass that impacts the beach. Right. And that's really important. And get your furniture off the beach so that the females that nest on the beach don't get entangled in that furniture. That's really important.
Right. And then if you happen to walk on the beach at night, if you use a flashlight, they encourage you to put a red lens over the top of it. And that includes your cell phones too. I think people don't.
Yeah, actually you can,
that.
it's interesting. There's some things on your phones that you can do. You can actually put a red filter on your phone. Just go in there and there's accessibility settings in there, and you can actually change so that when you're viewing your phone at night, which is, if you're a fisherman, it's great too, because it doesn't affect your night vision.
Right.
So it's a neat tool.
It is cool.
Yeah, you learn something every day.
Exactly. That's awesome. So sea turtles, we talked about that. Sanibel Sea School, which is another amazing program on the island.
Yeah, the Sanibel C School is amazing. We merged with the Sanibel Sea School, I believe it was in 2020.
I was going to say a couple of years ago.
2019 actually is when we merged. It used to be
its own entity, I guess.
Yeah, Dr. Bruce Neal headed up the Sanibel Sea School, and then in 2019 we merged with the Sanibel Sea School, and they're just... The work they do at the Sanibel Sea School is absolutely amazing. It's all about experiential learning. It's about learning by doing, taking the kids out, whether it's a field trip or we've got some after school programs. We've also been doing our summer programs and things like that. It's all about getting people out there, getting the kids out there in the water, getting dirty, smelling the creatures. Yeah. And we're trying to do that across many of our other programs.
Yeah, and you definitely see them. You come across a causeway, you look over to the right, there's the kids.
We could actually tell a couple of success stories from the Sanibel Sea School. We've had in our other business, our photography business, we've had kids that we photographed from a young age, and every summer they would go to, or holiday would go to, the Sanibel Sea School. And we know 2 now that have gone into marine biology specifically because of the Sanibel Sea School.
Yeah, they're from a
and
state
gone to school
north.
here locally. So from around the country, gone to FGCU.
FGCU.
Marine biology major, I think she is.
Yeah. So fantastic. So if it can spark an interest, and I know they do programs for the...
It's not just for kids either.
Well, there's a lot of kids inside the state that, believe it or not, there are kids that have not been to the beach and not experienced marine wildlife and everything.
Like Immokalee and places like that.
They come out and do programs for that. So that's amazing.
Yeah, we have the No Child Left on Shore program that we do in cooperation with the Captiva cruises.
I love the name of it.
Exactly. It's all about trying to get those kids out that maybe never would have experienced the ocean, even though it's in their backyard, but didn't have the means to get out and experience that. And of course, we work really hard to ensure that anybody that wants to go to the Sanibel Sea School, regardless of their means, can go, even if we have to, waive those fees for the less fortunate, and we do. And that's been a great program to really get people out, the kids especially, to learn about what we do. And our mission is to improve the ocean's future, one person at a time. And that's really the mission of the Sanibel Sea School.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
My gosh,
cool.
And I'll tell you, I'm super excited. This is the first year my son, Benjamin, who's 6 years old,
he's going to get to
go to the Sanibel Sea School this summer.
That's so cool.
We're very excited.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Wow, that's
awesome.
All right, next up, we have the Ocean Tribe Paddlers. Is that part of the...
Yeah, the Ocean Tribe Paddlers, it's really about trying to get people out on the water. And, that's a fantastic program. And people really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wait, there's so much to do and
I know.
so much to talk about.
Well, and, we have Coastal Watch as well, which is really how we, essentially train ambassadors to the island, getting out there and doing mangrove planting projects, oyster projects, interacting and making sure that we're, connecting the community with the work we do. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. And that's what the volunteer work we do does as well. It's connecting, the people with the work we do.
And I'm sure you're always looking for volunteers. So
we are.
What's the best way? Just to go on your website or?
Yeah, go on our website, and you can always email me and I'll get you in touch with the right program area so that you can volunteer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What did we miss? I think we missed the native planting.
Yeah, the Native Landscapes and Garden Center, which that is located at the Bailey Homestead. Yeah. And our goal there is to really get people to embrace the use of native plants to essentially plant wildlife habitat in their own yards, reduce their dependence on fertilizer and water, and try to, promote, a sustainable practice. And of course, those plants are beautiful too. Native plants, some people think that native plants aren't as showy as a hibiscus or other plants, but some of our native plants are absolutely beautiful, and of course they're important for pollinators and other wildlife.
So
and I think the city's been pivotal in getting that pushed through as well, isn't it? I think it's part of the planning process now, isn't it?
Yeah. So of course, it goes back to that conservation partnership we talked about earlier between the city of Sanibel, SCCF, Ding Darling, and others, where we worked really hard to get vegetation standards adopted by the city in the comprehensive land use plan. And the plan requires that 75% of the plants within the landscape are supposed to be native by count. Awesome. And that's in different categories: trees, shrubs, and ground covers. And it's to get people started off on the right foot.
Right.
So that they can really buy into the Sanibel ethos.
Right, which adds to, you don't need as much fertilizer on these plants. And
protects your water quality. Right. I mean, there's so many things. I'd be here. We could do a show just on
root systems are stronger.
Right.
Hurricane hardy.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Less watering required, because these are the plants that were here on the island that have been here for thousands of years. And
yeah, for sure. Awesome.
There's so much to talk about.
Max, have you got anything for us?
Yes, I do. Well, first off, we always ask, what if you had to give a suggestion to somebody that was visiting the island, they have one day, what is your suggestion for the best thing to do on the islands?
Best thing to do on the islands.
Experience the islands.
It can be more than one thing.
Well, I'm going to be general first and foremost. It's getting out in nature. It's really getting out and experiencing some of our wild areas. Get off the beaten path. Go to the, Pond Apple Park, Shipley Trail. Get out to Bowman's Beach.
Pick Preserve. Another one that people don't even realize is right across from the Sanibel School.
Absolutely.
There's a preserve there that you can actually...
Sanibel Gardens Preserve, the Bailey Track. I mean, we have so many wonderful preserves on these islands, and we've got some really wonderful beaches. I mean, Bowman's Beach is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Because of the extensive, shorebird habitat, and it's just, miles of beaches. So
yeah.
Silver Key is another one that not too many people go to.
That's true.
That's the beach between Blind Pass
and Bowman's.
Right. That's Blind Pass, of course, is the bridge that connects Sanibel and Captiva south to Bowman's. So there's a small little key, or a little key, as the name would imply, Silver Key, and it's a really cool place. There's a lot of beautiful Joe Wood trees, which are our city tree, and they're
amazing spot. Max did a video of visiting, did a vlog actually
visiting out there,
and he did a great vlog. It was just Max and his camera, and jumped in the water and
walked all the way there. I was showing off how you could get a beach to yourself, because a lot of these beaches, you there's crowds on busy days, but if you want to take a walk to Silver Key, you can generally get out there on your own.
Yeah, it's a spectacular beach. I mean, the water clarity out there is usually, the best anywhere else on the island. It's just a beautiful place.
So you know what? If you didn't make it this far in the podcast, you've missed out big time.
We're telling you about the secret
industry secrets.
All right, Max. So here, look, there's a little something you got to write down on.
Here comes the trivia.
Here comes the trivia. So.
No pressure.
Don't let Laurie.
All right, we'll see.
We're starting off, SCCF forward, so hopefully we can help you out. SCCF is the largest private landowner on Sanibel Island. They are in control of how many total acres of land on Sanibel?
I think you said, just on Sanibel.
Just on Sanibel. Because there are some... As we said, there's some other other places, but just Sanibel.
Or do we show you the paddle?
After they've answered, you don't want to give them any ideas.
Okay.
I have wandering eyes, apparently.
All right, Dad, you go first.
No, I'm going to change it because I think. Hold on. I just no. I've got it. I've got it. 1,060.
Mom.
I put 1,600 acres.
1,600?
Yeah.
James? 1,200.
We have 1,200 acres here on Sanibel, but we own and manage over 2,000 on Sanibel and the surrounding islands in the watershed.
12. Wow. And you even said it, and we didn't pay attention.
Yeah. All right, that's 1 point.
Okay.
1 point to James.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
Tailing, Mom and Dad.
Okay.
All right, next question. Among these private lands owned by SCCF, many of them have trails. How many total miles of trails are they in control of?
Oh my goodness. Man. Yeah, I'm sure you got this from the SCCF.org website.
From the website.
Boy, you might stump me on this one.
Of trails are they in control of?
How many miles of trail?
Public trails.
Public trails as SCCF.
Okay, I got it.
Are we just
Are you
talking
sure?
about just on Sanibel? Or, I don't know.
Is it going to make a difference?
There's
There's a
probably
lot.
won't make a
There's many
difference.
trails that we own and manage jointly
That-
with the city of Sanibel,
I
so that's
see.
a tough one. But anyway, I'm gonna.
Okay.
Let me read it from the website. We have more than blank miles of nature trails at preserves throughout the island. So that
Okay.
might mean the island, I'm assuming, is just Sanibel.
All right. Well, let's just go for it. Should we? Are you?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right.
I
What
got 8.4.
I put way above that at 30.
30.
Yeah, I'll go with 6.
According to the website, it is 8.
8. Oh man, that's sad.
James,
That's sad.
If you
Oh.
ever need an assistant, just let me know.
I know we have 4 at the Eric Lindblad Preserve. Yeah, but when you take into account the ones that we own and manage with the city of Sanibel, yeah,
Okay.
8.4. So
all
or
right.
There you go.
8.
8
Ish.
miles.
Okay.
8.
All
Okay,
right.
excellent.
1-1 zip right here. Man. Is this the last question?
There is actually a tiebreaker I wrote that's so if we have a tie after the
Which
end, we have
we-
a tiebreaker.
All right. We might, because if I get 1, we will all be 1-1-1. Let's
Okay.
hope
Make it
that-
a water
let's hope
quality
that
question.
happens. No.
Yeah, there you go.
I have bad news for you then. On May 7th, 2021, SCCF launched their updated Sanibel and Captiva bird list. How many species are on that list?
Oh, no.
Listing all birds that I think all birds that have been spotted for as long as they've been
Yes,
tracking
which, And they go out
All
and
right.
do an annual bird count, didn't they? On Christmas Day or some weird holiday. Or not weird, but yeah.
I could
Yeah,
be
it's
way,
called
I
the
could,
Christmas bird count.
Is
Yeah.
that what it
Is
is?
it?
Yeah.
Yep.
I could be way off on this one.
Me too, but we'll see.
Go ahead, Dad.
260.
260,
I put 220.
220, 212, 298,
Oh, another one.
298.
Thank you.
Wait. I want to ask the trivia question just because
Or
I wrote
the-
it down. The tiebreaker.
The tiebreaker.
Dad, you get the win.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
But we'll. This
I'm
is the
just gonna
final
it doesn't happen
question.
very often, so I'm just going to put that there for you.
The W.
The W.
All right.
W.
This is the final question. Doesn't
Arrow.
count for anything, but I wrote it, so we have to ask it. On that list, how many species of anhinga are listed?
Ooh.
I didn't know there was more than I just think
I'm
of
going
an
to say...
anhinga. Maybe this is a trick question.
Yeah, I know of
okay.
one.
Okay, I think I know. I know.
You do?
I think so.
You do not.
No, I don't know the number, but I think I'd know. Okay.
I'll go for 2.
Oh, that's what I thought there was. So I put 3 just because an
And
educated
James is
guess.
going for the trick question.
1 is the answer. James knows. I'm pretty
That's
sure.
the only, I needed a redeeming question.
Exactly.
Based on my surface level research, there is only one type of anhinga, and
Okay.
it's
Okay.
the anhinga.
Excellent. You'd be a good poker player.
Yeah, there you go.
You
Excellent.
forgot to ring the bell. Nick.
Oh, believe me, I'm going to relish in it. It doesn't happen very often, James.
All right, Dad. Close us
Awesome.
off.
Well, thank
my
you very much
gosh.
for joining us. It's very informative. We need to do it again and get some updates or something later down the road.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that we can do as a channel for you, we're always here. We're all about the water quality and everything Sanibel and Captiva. So any announcements, anything like that, just let us know. We'll be happy to get the word out there. And please, please, please support these guys and everything they do. They do a fantastic job. They could use the help both monetarily and volunteering
Boots on
wise.
the ground,
So boots on the
really.
ground. So definitely check out the Sanibel
SCCF.
SCCF.org.
There you go.
Perfect. Thanks very much, James, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay, and a quick shout out to our supporters. Without our supporters, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Bailey's General Store, Doc Ford's Rum Bar and Grill, Spoondrift Island Bowls, 3 Crafty Ladies, GatorBites Tail and Ale, Priscilla's of Sanibel, Coco y Cabana, Suncatchers Dream, and Sanibel Carts. And don't forget to reach out to Captains for Clean Water, one of our favourite island charities. Thanks very much. See you on the next one.